It's the middle of the afternoon, 30,000 years ago. A man is sitting in the shade doing absolutely nothing. No task, no guilt, nobody telling him to look busy. He has 16 waking hours in his day, same as you. And almost none of them go to anything you'd call a job. So what did he actually do with all that time? Stick around, because the answer is going to make you rethink how you spend yours. Let's do the math right now, on screen, because this is the whole video in one image. 24 hours in a day. Subtract 8 for sleep. That leaves 16 hours where nobody assigns you a single minute. You spend most of yours at a job, in traffic, or answering messages. A caveman spent about 3 of his getting food. That leaves 13 hours completely unaccounted for. Where did they go? To answer that, you first need to know how we even know any of this is true. Because here's the obvious objection: how do we actually know what cavemen did all day? Nobody filmed it. In 1963, anthropologist Richard Lee lived with the Ju-Hwanzi people of Botswana, one of the last groups on Earth still living close to how humans lived for most of history. He tracked every hour of their day and found adults spent about 17 hours a week getting food, not a day a week. Then other researchers checked the Hadza in Tanzania, the Ake in Paraguay, the Martu in Australia, different continents. Same result, 15 to 20 hours a week on survival. You probably work double that before you even count your commute. And the skeletons agree. Early farmers were shorter, riddled with cavities, arthritic by 30. The hunter-gatherers before them were taller, stronger, and mostly free of that damage. Their bones are the receipt. They weren't grinding 12-hour days to stay alive. So if survival only cost 3 hours, what filled the other 13? That's where it gets interesting. Here's what a caveman's job actually looked like, and it's shorter than your lunch break. Morning. The fire from last night is still warm. Someone throws on wood. Breakfast is whatever's left from yesterday, eaten sitting in a group, half asleep, half talking. Then a small group might head out to hunt. But here's what the movies get wrong: this isn't a daily desperate chase. If the last hunt worked and there's meat stored, nobody leaves camp at all. When they do hunt, it's not a sprint. Humans are persistence hunters. We jog after an animal for hours in the heat until it overheats and collapses. Because we're one of the only animals that can sweat while running. It can't outlast us. 3 to 6 hours total, then it's shared. By early afternoon, the job part of the day is already over. Hour 1 through 3 of 16 done. So what happens for the next 13 hours? This is where it stops looking anything like your life. If nobody hunted today, you'd expect people to just sit around bored. They didn't. They made things, and some of what they made shouldn't exist if life was a non-stop survival struggle. The morning fills with sharpening a spear, weaving a basket, softening a hide. No clock, no manager, you do it because being skilled earns you respect in a group where your reputation is your entire safety net. In Chauvet Cave, France, someone spent hours deep underground by firelight, painting horses and lions with real shading and motion. 30,000 years ago. In Sungir, Russia, a 34,000-year-old burial was found covered head to toe in thousands of hand-carved ivory beads. Researchers estimate the beadwork alone took over 10,000 hours to make. 10,000 hours spent decorating clothes for the dead. You don't spend 10,000 hours on jewelry when you're one meal from starving. You spend it when you have hours to burn, and that's only the half of the day nobody talks about. The other half is even stranger. This is the part modern people find almost impossible to picture: 6 straight hours of doing nothing productive. On purpose, without a shred of guilt. Anthropologist James Sussman documented that the Ju-Hwanzi spend roughly 6 hours a day in pure social time. Talking, playing with kids, grooming each other, which sounds small, but works exactly like a long conversation does for you. It's bonding. In a world with no money, no police, no contracts, your survival is your relationships. If people don't like you, they don't have to share food when you come back empty-handed. So you invest hours every day into people, not because it's productive, but because it's the only insurance policy that exists. Then the sun goes down, and something happens that researchers call the actual birthplace of human culture. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner recorded hundreds of hours of Ju-Hwanzi conversations. By day, talk was practical. At night, 81% of it shifted to myths, ancestor stories, jokes, tales from far away. That's where gods get invented. where storytelling starts. And it happens because for once, the day is over and nobody's stomach is empty. But even sleep, back then, didn't look like yours. Here's something that'll change how you think about your own 3 a.m. Wake-ups. Before artificial light, humans slept in 2 blocks first sleep for about 4 hours. A quiet waking stretch alone in the dark, then second sleep for another 4. You wake up at 2 a.m. and call it insomnia. They woke up at 2 a.m. and just existed in the dark for a while, then went back under. Add it all up, and the full picture looks nothing like your calendar. So here's the entire day, laid out, 3 to 6 hours hunting or gathering, only when needed. 2 to 4 hours tools or art. 6 hours talking, grooming, playing, storytelling, the rest nothing. Sitting, watching the sky. 16 hours. No job filled a single one of them. And then, one decision ended all of it. Forever, about 10,000 years ago, someone planted a seed on purpose and it became the worst trade humanity ever made without realizing it. Farming feeds more people. More people need more farming. Within a few generations, there's no going back, you're locked in. Farming meant plowing, weeding, harvesting, defending crops, storing grain. The bones prove it again, early farmers were shorter, sicker, and died younger than the people before them. But the population kept growing anyway. More people meant specialists, toolmakers, then soldiers, then administrators, then, eventually, jobs. The idea that your time belongs to someone else in exchange for resources. Which brings us to you. You'll spend about 90,000 hours of your life working. They spent 0, because the concept hadn't been invented yet. You make something creative on the weekend, if you have energy left after your job. They carved 10,000 hours into a burial outfit on a random week, because they had the hours and nothing telling them what else to do with them. We didn't get smarter. We didn't get freer. We just built a system that quietly erased 13 of the 16 hours our ancestors used to own outright, and most of us never even noticed the hours were gone. So here's the question worth sitting with. If you had your 16 hours back tomorrow, with nothing you had to do, what would you actually fill them with? Tell me in the comments. I'll read all of them.